Great. Morning, everyone. I'm calling the meeting to order. It is 10 a.m. Welcome and thank you for attending the Thursday, November 10th, 2022 meeting of the Free City College Oversight Committee. Jay, can you please take roll call?
Thank you, Chair Mariano. So I'll begin with a few announcements. Due to COVID-19 health emergency and to protect Free City College Oversight Committee members, city employees and the public, city offices are closed. However, members and employees will be participating remotely. I think we should change that language because I think some of the city offices are open. This precaution is taken pursuant to the various local, state, federal orders, declarations, and directives. Committee members and employees will attend the meeting through video conference and participate in meeting to the same extent as if they were physically present. For all members and employees participating in this Zoom meeting, we ask that you mute yourselves when you're not speaking. This will help reduce background noise. When you would like to speak, please select raise hand and wait to be introduced. Please remember to unmute yourself before you speak. Public comment will be available for each item on this agenda. Each speaker will be allowed 2 minutes to speak. Comments or opportunities to speak during the public comment period are available via Zoom and by phone. For Zoom users, from your screen, select raise hand and wait to be introduced. For phone users who called in, press *9 to raise your hand on the phone and wait to be introduced. You will be added to the queue to speak. Please wait until it is your turn to speak. When it's time for you to speak, you will be brought into the conversation by the Zoom administrator. Please state your name, and of course, you have the right to remain anonymous if you choose. You will have the standard 2 minutes to provide your comments. For Zoom users, there will be a timer on the screen. For phone users, we will give you a prompt that sounds like this. Astrid, if you have that.
I have that, but I will let you know.
Okay, and you will have 30 seconds. You'll hear a tone, and you'll have 30 seconds remaining. While you're waiting, you will be able to watch and listen to the meeting from the phone. The system will notify you when you're online and in waiting. All callers will remain on mute until their line is open. All speakers, please account for the time delays and speaking discrepancies between live coverage and streaming. Best practices are to call from quiet locations, speak clearly and slowly, and turn down any television or radio background sounds. This meeting will be recorded and posted on DCYF's website. Okay, so the first item on the agenda is call to order and roll call. So members, please unmute yourself as I call you. Co-Chair Mariano.
Present.
Co-Chair Davila. Member Hatfield. Member Key. Member Brandt.
Present.
Member Marr. Member Fate.
Present.
Member Kwok.
Present.
Member Sue.
Present.
Member Wilkins.
Present.
Member Messer.
Present.
Member Brody.
Present.
Member Ford. And Member Villalobos.
Present.
Great, we do have quorum. Chair Mariano, we do have quorum.
Great. Thank you, Jay. That moves us to item number 2. The second item is an administrative update on City College and introducing new members and staff. Jay will share the updates and introduce our new colleagues.
And thank you, Chair Mariano. So just a few quick updates. I know you have heard about that we were in the process of hiring a new analyst to support this work. So DCYF has hired an analyst to support this work, Kia Wallace. The plan is for her to start at the end of the month. Kia is on here, so now say hello.
Good morning, everyone. I'm excited to be here and I look forward to working with you all.
Thanks, Kia. And we wanted also to introduce our one of our fellow City Nobles, who some of you may have already met, but City's been doing some support for this work as well. If you just want to say hi, Sydney.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to be here.
Thanks, Sydney. And then with regard to the Oversight Committee, we do have one open seat. Tyler Wu has stepped down. He's moved to Los Angeles and will no longer be in this role. Tyler's seat was a mayoral appointment, so we're soliciting applications for anyone interested in the position. We'll post a link to the application in the chat if you want to circulate to your networks for that position. And then lastly, one of our student members, Angelica Campos, has stepped down, and I want to introduce for replacement Student Chancellor Heather Brandt. Heather, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you so much, Jay. Nice to meet everyone here. My name is Heather Brandt. I am a working student parent and mother of 3, attending City College of San Francisco and have been for some time. Currently serving in the role of student chancellor, as well as hold a position at the state level as a delegate on behalf of our college. Thank you.
Thanks, Heather.
Great. Well, welcome to the 3 of you. Welcome, Heather. Welcome, Kia, and welcome, Sydney. We're really excited to have you all on board. Are there any committee member questions or comments on this item? Okay, and do we have any public comment?
Astrid, are there any speakers in the queue?
There is no speakers in the queue.
Great.
Seeing none, public comment is closed.
Great. That brings us on to item number 3, adoption of the agenda. I don't know if we were going to plan to put the agenda up.
I can share my screen.
That'd be great. And so if everyone can please take a minute to review. Jay, are you pulling it up? I don't see it, but that also might be me and not technologically savvy me. Are other folks seeing the agenda? No.
I'm
Okay.
not, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No
It says
worries.
I'm sharing. Let me see if I can try this again.
There we go.
Okay, sorry.
Now I can see it, Jay. Thanks. So if everybody wants to just take a minute to review the agenda. Are there any committee member questions or comments on the agenda? Okay, and are there any public comments?
Astrid, are there any speakers in the queue?
There is no speakers in the queue.
Seeing none, public comment is closed.
Great. Is there a motion for approval of the agenda?
I move that we adopt the agenda as presented.
Oh, there's a hand up.
Oh, excuse me.
Member
Member
Yes,
Molinari, go for it.
I was going to move, so I yield.
Perfect. Do you want to be the second?
I'll second.
Great. Sounds like we have a motion and a second. DCYF, can you please take a roll call?
Sure. We'll now take a vote to approve the adoption of the agenda. Chair Mariano,
Yes.
Chair Davila, Chair Hatfield, or Member Hatfield, Member Key, Member Brandt,
Aye.
Member Marr, Member Fate,
Aye.
Member Kwok,
Aye.
Member Sue,
Yes.
Member Wilkins,
Yes.
Member Messer,
Aye.
Member Brody,
Yes.
Member Ford. Member Villalobos.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Great. That brings us to item 4, general public comment. DCYF, can you see if there are any public comments?
So members of the public may address Free City College Oversight Committee on items of interest to the public that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Oversight Committee. With respect to agenda items, members of the public may address the commission for up to 2 minutes at the times such item is called. Is there any public comment for items not listed on the agenda?
There is no public comment.
Okay. So seeing none, public comment is closed.
Thank you. That brings us to item 5, the resolution to allow teleconference meetings under California Government Code Section 54953E. Under the mayor's July 31st, 2020 order, policy bodies may meet remotely without advance approval from the mayor or the Board of Supervisors. But beginning on October 1st, 2021, policy bodies must regularly adopt findings to continue holding remote meetings. Under normal circumstances, the Brown Act imposes special requirements for remote teleconference meetings, including requirements to provide special notice to the public and to allow members of the public to attend each teleconference location and observe each policy body member at the location calling into the meeting. AB 361 suspends those requirements if the governor has proclaimed a state of emergency, provided that the policy body makes certain findings. Specifically, to invoke AB 361's provision, so long as the governor's emergency proclamation remains in effect, a policy body must make 2 findings at least once every 30 days. 1, it has considered or reconsidered the circumstances of the state of emergency, and either the state of emergency continues to directly impact the ability of policy body members to meet safely in person, or state or local officials continue to impose or recommend measures to promote social distancing. Whew. Are there any committee member questions on this item? Great. Are there any public comments?
Astrid, are there any speakers in the queue?
There is no speakers in the queue.
So seeing none, public comment is closed. I'm sorry, there's a hand raised. Listener.
Just that I see a note from Member Ford in the Q&A. She's having trouble getting in.
Oh, okay.
So I think
Thank you.
Great. That may be happening to others as well. I don't know, but we've had it with 2 people now. So
Okay.
new systems.
Sort that out.
Thank you. Great. Is there a motion for adoption of the resolution?
I move to adopt the resolution.
Great. And is there a second?
Second.
Was that, I don't know who that was. Is that member? Perfect. Great. Second. DCYF, can you please take a roll call vote?
Okay, so we'll take a vote to approve the adoption of the resolution. Co-chair Mariano,
Yes.
Chair Davila, Member Hatfield, Member Key, Member Brandt,
Aye.
Supervisor Marr, Member Fate,
Yes.
Member Kwok,
Yes.
Member Sue,
Yes.
Member Wilkins,
Yes.
Member Messer,
Yes.
Member Brody,
Yes.
Member Ford.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you. I've been here since the beginning. I just didn't define myself as a panelist, so. Here I am.
We were able to sort that out. Good to see you. Member Villalobos.
Aye.
Great, motion passes.
Great. That brings us to item 6, approval of the minutes from the meeting in September of 2022. Jay, would you be able to pull those up?
Yes, this is multiple pages. It's in your meeting packet if you want to see it, but I'll scroll through this a little bit slowly.
Thank you, Jay. Are there any committee member questions on this item? Okay, and are there any public comments?
Astrid, are there any speakers in the queue?
There is no speakers in the queue.
Okay, seeing none, public comment is closed.
Great. Oh, I see a hand from Member Brandt.
Sorry, yes, I actually did want to ask a question if I can. If we're going to take a vote on this and I wasn't in attendance at this meeting, should I be voting?
That's a good question. DCYF, do you know the answer to that?
I actually don't know the question to that. I think
This is Maria.
I think you can abstain. I'm sorry, Maria, you probably know better.
Dr. Cooper, do you have?
I was going to say the same thing about abstaining.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can choose to abstain if you don't feel comfortable, or you can vote to approve the minutes as it stands. But
Thank
yes,
you for the
a lot of people
clarification.
choose to abstain.
Thank you, DCYF. Member Brody, do you have a question?
Not a question, just a notice a slight edit. I was not present at that meeting, so you can add my name to the members absent.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Perfect. And I think I don't see any other member comments, and I think I already asked for public comment. Correct me if I'm wrong on this item, but I think we did. Perfect. I see a thumbs up. So is there a motion for approval of the minutes, including the amendment from member Brody?
Move to approve the minutes with the amendment.
Great.
Second.
Thank you. DCYF, can we get a roll call vote?
Sure. So we'll now take a vote to approve the adoption of amendment minutes with the amendment from member Brody. Chair Mariano.
Yes.
Chair Dabla, Chair Hatfield, Chair Key, or sorry, member Key, member Brandt.
Abstain?
Member Marr, member Fate.
Yes.
Member Kwok,
Yes.
member Sue,
Yes.
member Wilkins,
Yes.
member Messer.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, member Brody,
Abstain.
member Ford,
Yes.
member Villalobos,
Aye.
and member, the motion passes.
Thank you. That brings us to item 7, a city college update, which will be led by Dr. Lisa Cooper Wilkins. Dr. Wilkins, you can begin your presentation whenever you're ready.
Okay, great. Good morning, everyone. I'm pleased to come and give an update from City College. And it's multiple parts of the presentation. So I do need to ask if we could have a couple of more of our CCSF folks maybe brought over to the panel. Mike Lean Pontius and Rebecca Chavez should be out in the audience. Okay, next slide, please. So what we'll have today is a overview of our free City College annual report. And so you should have received the actual report as a part of the documents for today, but the presentation that you'll get will be from the writer of our report. So she'll do a high-level overview of those data slides. And then I wanted to just do a check-in about the possibility of us continuing our work with the RP group. Last meeting, you got, I thought, a really good presentation, a technical report and an impact report. And I think there's an opportunity for us to continue our work with them as we try to meet our goals for elevating equity as a part of the Free City program. Then the long-awaited for student debt data and discussion piece, and we have a member of our fiscal services area here to do that and wrap up with some important considerations and any questions you might have. As we begin the Free City Annual Data Report, is there any way that our guest Kelly could have an opportunity to share her screen to deliver the data slides? Is that possible? That would have been
it is. Do you want me
Yes.
to give her? Yeah, Astrid, can you set her up for that?
Yes, give me 1 second.
Thank you so much.
Would you like her to start sharing now?
Yes.
Okay, I'll stop mine here.
Okay, Kelly, you now have, there you go.
Great. Oops, Kelly, we can't hear you if you're speaking.
I realize that I'm going to struggle to drive, and so bear with me as I go back to the beginning here.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kelly Karanjev, and I am a higher education research consultant, and I have the pleasure of partnering with City College of San Francisco on a regular basis, and am a former program director from City College as well, and I have worked for many years now doing research in this space, including on student financial stability. So it's a real pleasure to be able to be chatting with you all today about the Free City College program. So as Lisa mentioned, there is a full kind of summary of the annual data in the report that was provided to you prior to the research. And today what we're going to focus on is really kind of the areas of opportunity that stand out in that annual report. Some of this is probably going to seem pretty familiar, as the trends are fairly constant from prior year reports. And Michaeline is going to also chime in a little bit as we go through these slides. So what we're looking at in this current year report is actually, give me a second here. The 2020-2021 academic year is the reporting period we're looking at. And of course, we need to take into consideration when looking at this data that we are in this reporting period at the height of the COVID pandemic. And so it's important to look at these numbers and look at this data in that context. We're going to just start by looking at this annual headcount. And what we see here is that roughly 70% of the City College credit student population was accessing Free City benefits at some point in the academic year. And that's pretty consistent from prior years since the program was initiated. And that's pretty good, considering that about 75% of the credit student population is eligible for these benefits. So generally speaking, there's pretty good alignment with the annual access of these benefits compared to those who are eligible. However, if we look at the term-to-term access, and that is like each semester, each term, it gives us a little bit more of an accurate picture about the percentage of the credit student population that's accessing these resources. So we do see a slightly somewhat lower percentage of the credit student population receiving Free City support each semester. So what you see here, and this kind of reminds us that the reporting period covers summer 2020, fall 2020, and spring 2021. And what you see here is that just under 60% of the credit student population is receiving this kind of support each semester. What could be contributing to those numbers? It could be that students don't know they have to apply each semester. They may not know about the program when they come to the college, or they may actually leave the city. So as a reminder, you have to be a San Francisco resident and be eligible for California tuition to receive these benefits. So then we're going to look at the type of Free City support participants are receiving. Again, as a reminder, City College students who are applying for the program and who are eligible, generally speaking, receive a tuition waiver. So that's the $46 per unit being waived based on their San Francisco residency and their eligibility for California tuition, in-state tuition. There is another much smaller percentage of the population that is not only receiving a tuition waiver, but also a cash grant of $46 per unit. And that cash grant is based on students' completion of the FAFSA and being determined eligible for financial support or financial assistance. So what we see here is, about half of the credit student population that is participating in the program getting a fee waiver, and then less than 20% getting a grant at some point in the year. And then, of course, there's 30% of the credit student population that's receiving no benefits. So one of the major contributors to so few students receiving a cash grant is the fact that City College has a relatively low completion rate for the FAFSA of about 30%. And this has held fairly consistent since the program's launch. When a student completes the FAFSA and are determined that they need financial assistance, they then have access to the Pell Grant, they can receive access to state benefits, and then of course they can receive access to this cash grant through the Free City program. So the absence of FAFSA completion across the credit student population, or the low rates of FAFSA completion, really impact students' ability to uptake that cash grant. It also impacts the college's ability to access certain funding streams. So this is certainly an area of opportunity for consideration in terms of program improvement. Another area of opportunity that we see, and this is in line with prior annual reports, and of course the equity audit that the RP group just completed, we do see a opportunity gap here in terms of student uptake of Free City benefits between those students who are part of the college's equity populations compared to their peers who do not fall in an equity group. For reference, the equity groups include Black and African American students, Filipino students, Latinx students, Native Hawaiian and other Pacific Islander students, students who are disabled, students who are experiencing homelessness, foster youth, and LGBTQ+ students. So at present, we do see, just to reiterate, a gap in accessing the program between those who are equity students and those who are not.
Yes, Heather's correct. Native American and Alaskan Natives are also an equity population.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. On a positive note, we do see that Free City students are across an academic year taking slightly more units than those students who are not Free City participants. So what you see is an average unit number of units attempted of around 13.5 units compared to their non-Free City peers who are taking just under 12 units. And their completion rates of those units are relatively similar. So this continues to assuage those concerns that might have been floating about at the onset of the program's implementation, that students who are receiving these benefits might not have enough skin in the game, they might not stay with their education and might drop their units. So that's actually not the case, and we're seeing that bear out year after year. What we do not see at this point is Free City, as it's being administered, tipping students towards more full-time enrollment, and full-time enrollment across an academic year is 24 to 30 units. In terms of awards, in the 2020-21 academic year, Free City participants received over 75, over 3/4 of the awards earned at the college. That's in line with the number or the percentage of the credit student population that's accessing these benefits, and it's actually the highest percentage since the initiation of the program. So that's a win. At the same time, much like we see an equity gap in access of Free City benefits, we are seeing an equity gap in terms of outcomes when we look at awards by equity group. Non-equity students are more likely to have received those and earned those awards than those who are Free City participants, than those who fall in an equity group. So just to kind of look across these data from the 2020-21 year, and also really holding in mind the recommendations that came out of last year's annual report and that came out of the RP Group's impact report just a few months ago. We continue to see an opportunity to position Free City as part of a broader equity agenda at the college, and that really is going to take intention in terms of how we think about organizing and administering the program from the student experience side. There is an opportunity to really think about what are those goals for the next 3 to 5 years in terms of access and retention as it relates to this program, particularly when we think about the equity populations who are at the college, and thinking about what would success look like, if we are to really set those goals and then to begin to monitor impact, considering, how would we know if we're doing a good job in terms of reaching the impact that we want for student equity groups in particular, who are able to access Free City benefits. And programmatically, what we see is that, they're particularly in light of, kind of persistent enrollment declines. These enrollment declines are happening with community colleges across the country, but not every community has a promise program like Free City. So there is this opportunity to really position Free City as part of the value proposition for coming back to the college or for coming to the college for the first time, and to particularly raise up that opportunity to receive cash grants, not just tuition waivers, but cash assistance for enrollment for those who qualify. So that would also require increasing the uptake of these benefits each term. So really helping students and college personnel know that each term they have to apply for free city benefits, and that to receive that cash grant, they have to complete an additional application. So really doing more education across the population to ensure that everyone is aware of the opportunity and how to access that opportunity. And then clearly strengthening FAFSA completion is a real area of opportunity, particularly to encourage more students to be able to access those cash grants. In addition, there is an opportunity to really think about how to package the program as part of a holistic financial support package. So students know that Free City sits alongside of other financial support opportunities and basic needs supports at the college. Again, to make sure they understand that there is this holistic assistance available to encourage both enrollment and retention, re-enrollment each semester. And to think about how to, perhaps use the Free City investment to provide other kinds of financial stability support to those who are eligible. When we think about kind of areas of opportunity and setting goals and identifying metrics, I think the continued partnership with the RP group could be very useful to really dive more into the student experience, perhaps some student journey mapping, some student focus grouping, but really looking at how students are engaging with the program from start to actually receiving the benefits could be an area of real support to kind of realizing some of these improvements. And then, of course, really thinking about how to boost City College capacity to carry out these program improvements. They won't just happen on their own. So there's an opportunity to look at how the program is being staffed and supported and resourced to really kind of move in this kind of into this next area of improvement. So I'm going to check the chat quickly to make sure there's no questions.
There's no questions.
Okay.
Can I just clarify something? This is Maria.
Yeah.
So can you just, you said that Free City College is not helping students transition into full-time, as a full-time student. How many units are Free City College students getting or taking?
So on average, across an academic year, they're taking about 13.5 units. A full-time load across an academic year would be 24 to 30 units.
Oh. And so the 13.5, is that perceived as part-time? Do you define that as a part-time student?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that average is a mix of full-time and part-time, with the majority being part-time students.
I see.
Yeah. And that goes to Free City alone is highly unlikely to encourage full-time enrollment. However, Free City packaged with other resources and supports and positioned to a student as a key benefit could potentially encourage full-time enrollment. And that may be something to consider, it's an area of inquiry, right, for connecting with students directly to see if that would be a benefit that would tip them toward fuller time enrollment. Of course, we know right now in the context that we're operating that students have many demands that they're juggling. There was a really interesting report that just came out from the Gates Foundation looking at, enrollment declines across the country with community college students and what's, contributing to those declines. And of course, a key area are the financial needs and considerations that students are grappling with. There's a whole other kind of cohort of students that are questioning just the value proposition of attending college in general. So it's something to, to keep in mind as we think about, how does Free City get positioned as part of the broader value proposition for a student coming to the college?
We have another hand raised. Elisa Messick.
Hi, sorry, my hand may be hard to show up. I had that same question about thinking about full-time and whether or not Free City would move people into full-time. And I guess I don't see any reason that it would, nor was the program designed to to push people into full-time. In fact, the program was designed differently from some other promise programs which insist on full-time. And it's one of the sort of unique things about Free City is that it supports full-time students. I know for myself and the students that I work with at City College, so many of them are full-time and they have, they're adults, they have caregiving responsibilities, they work, all of those things. So I know that, I know the data about full-time often helping with student success, but so many of the students I work with are not in a position to go full-time, even with Free City grants. And I guess one of the questions that I have that I think, I do think all the time about how can we use Free City and the other things in our sort of financial arsenal for students, how can we use those things to support them to have more time for schoolwork? And so many of the students that I meet are working so much and trying to cram their education in with full-time and sometimes multiple jobs. And so I guess one of the questions that I wanted to ask, and I don't know if this is the place to ask it, but I wonder about matching up the data we have here with data about students' unmet needs through financial aid and what kind of unmet financial needs students have. And if that's a place that we ought to be considering an expansion so that students have more support and can work a little bit less. No, none of us are under the impression that waiving tuition or even if they access Pell Grants, financial aid, if they can access everything possible and it's still not enough to get by on in San Francisco, usually without work, unless it's, for most students. So is that something that we can find a way to think about? And does it make sense to sort of imagine what a smaller pilot program that sort of expands Free City for some groups of students that would actually meet larger amounts of their unmet need? Is that someplace we could talk about? Or
could I just interject just as a way to start to answer that question? Is that's one of the recommendations is that we continue this exploration about what Free City could look like, or some iteration of looking at support for students above and beyond what currently exists. Is this idea of continuing our work with the RP group and sort of setting different, say, equity goals and outcomes as one of the strategies. And so certainly there would be time for us to explore a number of different strategies that don't currently exist in this iteration of Free City. So I just wanted to say that to put less pressure on Kelly to try to answer that as her giving the final report of data about the program. And then I do see that Malinali and Heather both have questions.
Yes, recognize. Okay.
Yes, go
Go for it.
Okay. Well, thank you, Member Messer. I think my comment was in aligned with yours. Aside from the Free City College, there's Free City, there's other basic needs that students require, as well as housing security, food security, textbooks, transportation. So even though Free City is great and it helps relieve a lot of this burden and stress financial capacities for students. There's other factors in that students need that sometimes it's not seen right away, but there's a lot of basic needs that still haven't been covered, and that's a factor on that plays a big factor on why some students are not able to do full-time, aside from all the other responsibility.
Yes.
Thank you. And Member Brandt you've had your hand up. Go for it.
Thank you. Yes, I'm not sure where to incorporate this in the conversation and if this is the most appropriate place or not, but I think there is overlap as we think about potential strategies and solutions moving forward. I think sometimes what is a barrier for students also is there not being an appeals process when students need to withdraw from courses due to life circumstances and the barriers that creates financially if they can't pay off or pay back what they wouldn't have had to pay through Free City had they been able to complete. And I know later in today's meeting, I think one of the agenda items is outstanding fees. So I just want to bring that in here, but hopefully we can revisit this discussion at a later point in time.
Thank you all so much. Any other comments from members? Great. And are there any public comments?
Astrid, are there any speakers in the queue?
There's no speakers in the queue.
I've seen none. Public comment is closed.
Great, but I see Member Messer. Go for it.
Apologies. Are we at the end of this part of the presentation? Is that?
I believe so. I think.
Okay.
There's another portion, but at this part, yeah.
Right. Okay. I just wanted to make sure to make one other comment about the FAFSA uptake, since that is another area that we've had a lot of long-term conversation about. And I think at least from a faculty perspective, we've always been very interested in supporting FAFSA uptake, but felt very clear that requiring FAFSA in order to access Free City was actually an additional barrier. So our argument, and I know not everyone agrees with this, but our take has always been that Free City, and actually this report frames it nicely, Free City is it's a boon, it's an extra thing that can help get students in the door, and that adding obstacles on top of it in order to access it, it's sort of framed at this point as a first dollar program that gets students in the door, and then we can support students if they're able to apply, if they're eligible for FAFSA, for the California Promise Grant, for those kinds of things. But and I think that seems like a good idea, but I just wanted to repeat how strongly we have felt in the past about ensuring that we don't set up a barrier to accessing Free City by requiring something as opposed to encouraging it and supporting it in happening.
I think, I'm sorry, as Member Brandt, is your hand still up from the previous one, or do you have another comment?
No, it wasn't. It was in regards to what is being said.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say from the student standpoint and perspective, right, with regard to Free City, you can still be a Free City recipient without having to apply for FAFSA. You just cannot receive the stipend. And so I just want to make that clear, that distinction. So there is a barrier with receiving the stipend, but not to qualifying and receiving Free City.
So Chair Mariana, before we kind of close this out, I think we're a little bit over time, but I think City College wanted to talk a little bit about the RP group in this item as well.
Thank you all. I'm going to peel off.
Thank you.
Take care.
Yeah, just really quickly, before we get to the student debt piece, it was just this opportunity for us to consider our work with the RP group, now that they've sunsetted some of the work around the equity and impact, equity impact and technical report, the thought was maybe we engage them again to maybe help facilitate a few sessions with us early in the spring semester, January, February, to help us develop equity goals and outcomes, obviously including some key staff from City College to be a part of those workshops, including the entire oversight committee, because some of those recommendations will undoubtedly be ways that we could direct specific support to students. So having, the technical expertise of the folks with their boots on the ground would be helpful. So I've already just engaged in conversation with them in terms of what this might look like, and could certainly submit a proposal for consideration, because also, just any funding that would be required to support that would be a part of that outline as well. But I just think just hearing the comments today, it's that kind of thing where we could be taking a deep look at in what ways we could re-envision providing support to students over and above the funding that comes with it to cover units. So that was one thought, and certainly would love to hear thoughts from folks about that. If there's brief time for that, if there's an interest in that, I'm happy to submit some specific recommendations on what that would look like.
Thank you. Let's go to Member Ford.
Member Ford, you're on mute.
Oh, I think you're still muted.
Okay, now can you hear me?
Yeah, there you go.
I just felt like I was in my family and they don't want to hear me anyway. So, but anyway, I just really wanted to thank the previous speaker for what she was saying, and really stress that actual concrete examples of what we can do. Free City has been around now for several years, and we have these discussions and we have these charts, and we know the needs, I think, and just actually giving us some ideas on how we can reinforce supporting students. The students I talk to, Dr. Wilkins, are working 2 or 3 jobs and trying to take more classes and want to graduate from City College, but it's just hard to squeeze it all in. So any other kind, and we have a little bit of money, we don't have a lot of money, but we do have some money. So how can we really support students concretely? I mean, whatever it is that we can do that these folks will come in, share with us. We don't really need theory anymore, or how the grand picture. I think we all understand that we need some real concrete suggestions on how to move forward in supporting students.
Yeah, I think that's the idea, is how do we establish measurable equity outcomes and goals for the program? So not theory, but specifically what makes sense for this program, and things that we can absolutely measure those outcomes as well, is the direction I would love to see us going.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other comments from any members? Great, and then let's just check for public comments one more time. Any public comments?
Astrid, are there any speakers in the queue?
There's no speakers in the queue.
I've seen none. Public comment is closed.
Great. Thank you all so much for the fruitful discussion. This moves us on to agenda item 8, outstanding fees. This is a discussion and also an action item. So City College will share estimates for a proposal to cover the outstanding fees of all San Francisco residents. After the discussion and questions, we will take a vote to determine if this body is in support of a proposal to cover the outstanding fees for all San Francisco residents using reserve fund dollars. The presentation on estimates, I don't know if that's going to be by Dr. Wilkins, maybe Rebecca Chavez, someone from the City College. I will pass it on. I think it's Rebecca. So Rebecca, if you want to begin with your presentation.
Yeah, good morning. So if we can, yes, so if we can just look at this slide. Last time when at the last meeting, it was identified 2 pools of students, one being San Francisco residents, and the other one was the Free City students with outstanding balances. So we went back and identified those students. There's, if I'm able to share my screen.
Yes.
One second, giving you access to the screen.
Can you guys see the screen?
Yes, we can see.
Yes.
So over here, this is actually with the data that you guys were seeing in the previous slide. So we have the totals, and we also have an index of all the detailed codes. And I'm referencing those because on the next tab of that Excel sheet is going to take us to totals by detail code by Free City students. So we had to get reports that would give us by semester. For this particular, these are Free City students that have outstanding fees other than just the Free City repayments. So from this information is that I was able to then pull out and provide some of these totals to you for this meeting. Is there, do we have any questions, or am I providing you with enough information to make the decision that you have to make? The other tab is again, these are just the details by semester, by detail code for San Francisco residents that have an outstanding balance. And I calculated, or should I say, I went back to the beginning of Free City. So we have the Free City students, and then we have the San Francisco residents with outstanding fees.
Thank you. I might just jump in and then I'll pass it over to Member Sue. I just wanted to ask a couple clarifying questions. So just to clarify, the yellow column are people living in San Francisco that have applied for a Free City. And then the green column are people living in San Francisco that have not applied for Free City, but everybody lives in San Francisco. Is that right? Okay. And then do you mind just real quick, I see some of the codes of the types of fees. Would you mind just elaborating a little bit more, like maybe just a couple examples of what those fees might be, just so that everybody understands? Thank you.
Yeah, so if we start the A03 city, that's an activity fee for the spring term. The next one is your activity fee for fall. Some of these starting with A, those are materials fees for the art classes that have a fee when registered to them. There are some, the health fee, where it's right here is the health fee. All the students are required to pay that fee. The same thing applies for the materials fees. So, I put a description so that it would give an idea as to what those fees entail. The more required ones will be like your web fee, the materials fees. Some of them, like over here on the RPIP, this student was on a installment payment plan, and we got a charge back for that. So that's what that would be. The Free City map, or we call it, not Free City, but the FMAP, that's the Bullet Material Access Program fee. And this is something that was just started about spring of 21, where the bookstore provides all the materials on the first day for students to have not only materials, but books or subscriptions ready to go on the first day of class.
Great, thank you. Member Sue.
Actually, Chair Mariana, you asked Same question I was thinking, which is just clarification for fees. So maybe I can just keep down this line of fees. Rebecca, can you just, how do the students get assessed these fees? So then when they register, they're just told you get your free city stipends or waivers, and then on top of that, you get these. You have these fees.
So with the student, sorry.
Well, our students communicated that you just come to college because you live in San Francisco. Everything is paid for, and so students are not aware that they have these fees.
So when the students register, usually at registration, the students that they complete the affidavit, they get automatically, they would get the free waiver if they are within the free city zip codes, and they complete the affidavit. All the fees that are required are assessed at the point of registration. So students is no surprise. The only one that is not would be the material fee for the full ed program or the bookstore. Those are provided to my office during the semester, and then we upload them to the students. There is a process with the bookstore where they're notified that these fees will be assessed or how they are going to be assessed.
Thank you. And then I just have one more question. So for this $2 million, do you know how many students we are talking about?
So, the number of students, and I thought about it when I said, oh no, they're gonna ask me about the number of students, and I don't have the particular on this. I think that we provided the number of students for the free CD repayment, but those will be increased by the other fees. I think it was student trustee Malinali that asked, or they brought that up at the last meeting where he said, some of the students, and I think that is it's a big misconception that students feel that free CD means all their fees are paid, and it's not that case. There are some fees that are not, and that creates some confusion for students because basically free CD pays for the enrollment fee, but it doesn't pay for that $29 fees. So, I mean, I can, provide that information, but I don't have it with me at this point.
Thank you. Let's do member Brandt and then member Malinali.
Thank you. I think some of my questions may have already been asked, but if you could scroll down to the detailed codes. I was wondering what the difference was between A140 and A145. They're listed as the same thing. Just was curious.
So there's yes, I'm sorry.
That's okay. So
there's, depending on the class, the A40 is one particular course, that A145 it's a different course. Sometimes we use the same detail codes so that we're not creating a detail code, or maybe the description might fall under the same, but those are two distinct courses.
Okay, thank you for the clarification on that. And then with regard to the RPIP, why would a student have an installment payment plan if they're a free city student?
So sometimes the students don't, let's say they complete the information on the affidavit incorrectly, they don't get a free CD, they don't get free CD at the point of registration. Then they go in and they start with a free CD with an installment payment plan. Once they get the free CD, then that stops. And sometimes students, not understanding that that money they can apply for the refund, they just dispute the charge. And so that's when that comes. There's a lot of students too that apply for a BOC waiver. They get the BOC waiver and they're also at the same time applying for an installment payment plan. So, and I don't understand what prompts that. I haven't really gotten a response from students because I've been curious as to why they would, what prompts them to do this.
Okay, just to clarify, the BOG that you're mentioning, that's the California Promise Grant?
That is,
Yeah,
yes.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's okay, no problem. And then my last question, I'm so sorry, I know I've asked a lot. If you can scroll up to the top, I'm just noticing that for fiscal year 21, there's a big difference in comparison to other years before and after with regard to Free City outstanding fees. So I was curious about that.
COVID.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Let's do member Villalobos.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. It's very informative. I just anytime we attempt to remove those barriers and red tape for students, it's always a plus, and that's this is great. This is great. This would be one less barrier for students.
Member Messer.
I just, the thing about the barriers is so big, and we've talked about the ways in which these outstanding fees create barriers. And I'd like us to think about, for a future iteration, what it would mean to not set up the outstanding fee issue in the first place. So it's great to have it go away afterwards, but we know that we've already had students who, came and then were like, oh, I can't register, I have a fee, it's a mystery, never mind. And so the more barriers we take away, right, we can set it up so we don't have to take barriers down because the barriers aren't put up in the first place. And that's something that was built into the initial version of Free City that we could rethink and change. We've seen pretty consistently, including in the last presentation, that this is not students signing up who aren't serious or aren't taking this seriously. They don't need to have that skin in the game concept in order for this to be a valuable point of access for them. And so maybe it's not as necessary to have that backstop where students will have to pay for something if they do end up withdrawing. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Any other comments from members?
Member Ford has her physical hand raised.
Sorry about that. Go for it, Member Ford.
Sure. I just have a question for Maria Sue, and that's just practically, how much money do we have in our surplus, or how much money do we have to spend?
Thanks for that question. I think based on the last Free City meeting that we had, where we had the presentation from our auditors, it looks like we have upwards of $20 million that's,
oh my goodness,
that's falling in the reserve right now. So there's money in there. And I will just say again that what we're voting on here is to agree to the proposal that we as a body would like to present to the mayor, that she could use the monies to do this. So that is our role, which is to agree on the proposal, and then we move it over to the entity that has the authority to allocate the funds.
Okay, I would like to make the motion if I could.
We'll finish.
Let's go.
member comments. We got to do public comment and then we'll get there.
Okay.
Thank you. Let's do member Brody.
Yes, thank you. I just want to ask, so the fees that we're seeing on here in these unpaid fees, do they continue to be not paid by the Free City funds that this college receives for new students coming in? For instance, the health fee, we know all students are going to be charged that, but is that, what would it take for the to change, the language so that those fees are also included in what's covered by Free City for those students?
I can maybe answer that. I think it would be a change in the MOU So it would be the agreement between city and city college on what is actually covered through the Free City program.
Yeah, okay. And what does that look like? How would that take place? Would that be like another action item at this meeting, or?
I think, I mean, we can probably definitely talk about it and bring that up through this committee. And then if this committee kind of agrees that that's something we would want to do, then we would have to revisit the MOU with the city, and city college would have to revisit the MOU on what that might look like.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to, yeah, the reason why this comes up is because I'm thinking if we do have a surplus now, yes, I'm with, Member Ford that, I'm ready to move towards, getting rid of these barriers for students who may want to return, right? But if we know that there may be, a surplus in the funds, then can we look at, even helping the students out who are coming in to not have to pay for some of these things like the health fee, which is, a basic need. Service, right? So thank you.
And we'll note that as maybe a future agenda item, just so we keep track of these things. So thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, what I was just going to add is that would I would want to be thoughtful about that. That would definitely be a big lift to think about. Changes to the MOU. So would just want to be thoughtful about that conversation. Did I see Member Messer's hand up before we move on? Maybe it was from the last round of comments. Any other comments from committee members? Okay, and is there any public comment?
Astrid, are there any speakers in the queue?
There is no speakers in the queue.
Seeing none, public comment is closed.
Great. So now, Member Ford, I will ask if there's a motion to support a proposal to use City College reserve funds to cover the outstanding fees of City College students who are San Francisco residents.
All that that the chair said, plus I promote this and with enthusiasm, and finally that we were moving forward to use the funds that we have to support removing at least some of the barriers for the students. So yes, I propose that we offer the proposal to the mayor's office that we pay this fee number in full, $2,071,518.
Thank you. And can I get a second?
Second.
Second it.
Oh, I think Member Messer might have gotten that in just a second before. So it sounds like we have a. Oh, go
I
ahead.
yield to student trustee Malinelli.
There you go. There you go. Perfect.
Thank you.
Sounds like we have a motion and a second. DCYF, can you please take a roll call vote?
Great. So we'll now take a vote to approve this motion. Chair Mariano,
Yes.
Chair Davila, Chair Hatfield, Chair Key, Member Brandt,
Aye.
Member Marr. So I see Member Kai just chatted, put in the chat his eye. Member Fight.
Yes.
Member Kwok.
Yes.
Member Sue.
Yes.
Member Wilkins.
Absolutely, yes.
Member Messer.
With relish, yes.
Member Brody.
Ditto that, yes.
Member Ford.
Proudly, yes.
Member Villalobos.
Yes, with 100% certainty.
And the motion passes.
Can we say that the motion passed unanimously?
Yes, the motion passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to everybody that did a lot of work to get us here. I know it took a lot of time and discussion, and it was thorough. And so thank you all for the folks that really pushed this forward.
Yeah. Before we move on to the next item, Dr. Wilkins did ask if she could reopen for a minute the last item, City College update. She wanted to present something else around the RP group. I think it'll just take a few minutes.
Yeah, just if we are interested in moving forward to developing those specific equity goals and outcomes for the program and would be open to dedicating some time to do that in the early spring. I think even 2 workshops of a couple of hours, that if we could do that in January and February and ensure that we had, again, the appropriate college employees join us from the various support programs, given the nature of the suggestions that have come both from the RP group, the annual report, and even from some of you in the discussions today and in previous meetings. I think we could see a shift in the program if we did this work early enough in the spring and brought it back to the Oversight Committee at the spring meeting, that we could be establishing some changes to the program that could impact it as early as the start of the very next upcoming academic year. So I just wanted some more maybe official authority to move forward in this respect and be able to start this work and bring back these specific recommendations.
Yeah, I thought we don't have this as an action item, but I suppose if there are no objections to kind of moving forward with this, that might help Dr. Wilkins.
Member Messer.
Dr. Cooper Wilkins, I guess I'm a little unclear on what the ask is, because I know last time we discussed this, we were told that the RP group was no longer employed by, or, sort of had a contract with City College. But I also know that our initial, our presentation today was from an RP group employee.
Oh, no, not under the guise of RP group, no.
Oh, okay. Just she works for them, but was doing something separate.
Dependent, yeah. So this would be obviously the idea of entering into a new contract to help us facilitate getting to a place where we develop specific goals and outcomes for the program around our desire to have a greater equity impact on the student population. So,
and is that a monetary ask to get that set up? Is that ultimately what you're asking the team?
If there would be, and so I would obviously submit any proposals that had a monetary component for approval in advance of making any commitment to do anything. But it's the idea of, because I don't know when our next meeting would be, but we would need to probably also find times. I know that that's always sometimes challenging too, just to find the time for our meetings, but we would need to find the time for those workshops. So there's a lot of logistics involved, as well as getting the commitment, to financially committing to continuing the partnership as well.
And sorry, just so that I understand, that would be this monetary commitment would be from the reserve fund, from City College's greater budget.
Right. It would be another request to access funding outside of what maybe our typical administrative costs. We would submit a proposal that outlines what the financial commitment would be and request the ability to engage in the work and encumber those funds because they're just not in our regular administrative costs of the program.
It seems like really important work. I also think it seems like we would want to go through more of a process before submitting a proposal. So like hear, from you how much you were thinking and kind of, what it would be used for. Yeah. So is the ask right now just
to be able to do that?
Okay.
Yeah. And all of those things. Yes.
Got it.
Start to find like at least earmark times that we might be available for workshops, because I don't want this to happen and then we're in January and saying, oh, we didn't do that. You know what I mean? So just maybe start to at least earmark some time. And then I would submit an official proposal and request subsequent to this meeting.
So I would just like to, can I make a resolution? Can I make a motion to allow Dr. Wilkins to pursue this whole discussion and a progress report, give us a progress report on how things go and with a conclusive one with all of the costs and products involved, but let's allow her to get started officially.
Yeah, and DCYF tell me, I don't know if it's an official motion. I don't know if that was on the agenda, but we can just say as a part of this discussion, we think that would be a good thing for this body to continue to look into. I think
Yeah.
that's probably makes sense.
That's fine.
Yeah, this is an action item, but since we're taking notes here, we can basically just kind of capture that sentiment. And,
Good, that's good.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other comments from members? I think I should also ask for public comment too, just in case there's anything. Is there any public comment?
yeah, Astrid, are there any speakers in the queue?
There is no speakers in the queue.
All right, seeing none, public comment is closed.
Great. That moves us on to item 9, which is a discussion item about the dual enrollment program. We will have a presentation from member Joanna Fight. You may begin your presentation.
Great,
Joanna,
thank
do you
you.
want your slides, or did you want us just to move them for you?
I can share my slides. That's not a problem. Let me,
Astrid, do you need to give her permission? I'm not sure.
Yes, you now have permission.
okay. For some reason, it's not letting me share. It's saying I don't have access to share, even though I have the share screen button here. Oh, let's see if this works.
Oh.
Can you see the presentation?
Now we can see it.
You can see it.
Great. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you for this opportunity. I'm just going to provide a brief overview of dual enrollment and our partnership with City College, and then have the opportunity to have a discussion. So again, my name is Joanna Fight, and I'm the Executive Director of College and Career Readiness in SFUSD. So today I'm going to talk about the types of dual enrollment, course requests, participation and completion rate, also some matriculation data into CCSF, and breakouts and challenges. So for types of dual enrollment, we have 3 types, really. The CCAP courses are courses that are offered during the school day at a high school campus from a City College instructor. Then we have early release or after school programs. And what that means is that we have, for example, at SF International, one of our schools, we at around lunchtime, we take the entire senior class over to City College to take courses at City College. And then we have some schools such as Lincoln and Academy that will offer classes after school so that any student can join those courses. And then we have general dual enrollment, which would be the courses, that students sign up for that are not necessarily through our program, but they're going on their own, and it's various students and schools. For course offerings, this is showing you on our, how the amount of FTE that City College will give us for dual enrollment courses. So you can see that it's gone up and down. Obviously, the pandemic certainly impacted this in many ways. And in general, where we are at right now is we're given an allotment of about 3.0 FTE per semester, and that's where we've been for the last couple years. And we've also, in fall of 2021, started purchasing some classes via contract ed because we wanted to go above our 3.0 allotment. This is the completer data, and what you can see here, and completers for these purposes is a D or better. And what you can see is we've really done, our partnership has really increased in the amount of credits that are being earned.
And what you'll see next over time is also the demographic of the students that are changing. So here you can see the completers by ethnicity. And one of the things that we strive to do in SFUSD is to match the ethnicity percentage to our SFUSD demographic. And we've done a pretty good job of doing that. So for example, with African American students, we're at about 6 or 7%. So we could get a little higher there. And we always have a lot of requests from our Chinese and Latinx students. But what we're really trying to focus on is providing the support, in particular for our Latinx cohorts, because they tend to drop out of the classes sometimes. So we're trying to provide that support so they stay engaged. So then we also have our internship program, which is a program that connects a city college course with an internship that they're doing at the same time. This mostly happens, our biggest time for this is during the summer, where we can have, where students aren't taking classes, so they can take a dual enrollment course and have a paid internship at the same time. And what you see here is the number of students participating. And one of the only reasons we've been able to make this program grow is through our partnership with DCYF that has given us funds. So you can see here in 2019-20, we received $4 million from the city and DCYF to increase access. And then we just received another $4 million to continue to grow this program. And it really has a huge impact because we're able to pay students. And a lot of times in the summer, we find that our most underserved students want to go find a job so that they can support their families, et cetera. And if we're able to pay them, then we're able to keep them engaged in a dual enrollment course and a supported paid internship. So this is the ethnic breakdown of the internship participation. This also means that this is the ethnic breakdown of the students participating in dual enrollment. So you can see like we really are able to engage more of our African American and Latinx students in the summer because they're not going to school. This again shows you the sectors of the students that are participating. So we have a lot in the health science and biotech is our highest participation. And then our second highest would be the media arts. And that also goes along with our CTE pathways in our schools. Those are the two highest enrolled pathways. So in terms of matriculation, what this slide is showing is that there is a total that we have around 305, at the highest point, we had 305 students participating in, that were matriculating from SFUSD into City College. And what the blue line is showing is that 192 of those 305 participated in dual enrollment. So we see that there is a pretty big association with students who take dual enrollment while they're in high school and then enroll in City College once they graduate. And this is just showing in general into a 2-year institution, into a 4-year institution, and into all institutions. So you can see that we have a pretty high rate of around 80-ish% that do enroll in some sort of college after high school. Of course, the pandemic highly impacted that, but we're hoping to see an increase soon on that as well. So bright spots and challenges. What you can see here is, we SFUSD schools are constantly asking us for more dual enrollment class. They want one per CTE pathway. They want one for each, type of school that represents what their goal is. We have been able to increase access for our focal populations. I know this has been a goal for both SFUSD and CCSF, is to see an increase in our most underserved populations, and we have been able to increase that. certain programs have been a huge success. We started a fire science pathway at Mission High School a couple years ago to increase the workforce for the fire department in the city. And it's built in with, 2 years of courses from City College that come to the Mission High School campus. And then the last 2 summers, we had our seniors that matriculated right into the EMT program at City College, and it's really been a successful program. Our construction and our auto program have also been a huge success at Washington and O'Connell. And then we also do our 9th grade courses for Chinese and Spanish immersion students, and that's probably one of the main courses for such young students, but it's really been a success in promoting the language and bilingual education for them. Some of our challenges have been that we've reached our current capacity for dual enrollment in terms of the courses that can be offered. And then this is something that we always strive for. Our next bullet point was around professional development for instructors. And this is something we provide internally for SFUSD around what are the best practices of teaching. And the question is, how can we also do that with City College? Because teaching a city class is very different than teaching, adults is very different than teaching high school students. And then how can we ensure that SFUSD students are prepared for their dual enrollment courses? We also have limited funding for contract ed. So I'm wondering how we can expand our first one so that we don't get to the point where we can't purchase classes. And then navigating systems between going SFUSD systems to City College systems can always be a little bit of a challenge for our students. And then just some examples that I've been researching with other community colleges are around co-teaching and bulk registration and 0 fees for any high school students. So that is the presentation here, and open to questions.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions or comments from members? Member Messer.
I would love for someone else to go first if anybody else has questions. I don't see any other hands going up. This is great because there's so much information in here, and I just want to thank you. You predicted all of my questions. Every time I was thinking something, the next slide gave me the answer to the question I was going to ask. So I really appreciate this. The questions that come up for me primarily, I think I have 3 things. The one thing that wasn't addressed that I sort of have an ongoing question about is how our undocumented students in SFUSD can or can't have access to dual enrollment, because I keep hearing different descriptions of that and how that works. So that for me is a sort of an open question about whether or not there are any undocumented students who are accessing dual enrollment and what we can do to help them ensure that they have access. And Heather's asking, is the presenter still here? Which is a great question.
I just saw that. Yeah, I wonder maybe in the transition from presenting to ending the presentation, I wonder if she fell off. Maybe we'll
of her.
So I guess a comment.
There we go.
There
she's back.
She's back.
I am so sorry about that. My internet went out, so now I'm on my phone. So hopefully that will work and I won't go away again.
We lost you. I was saying how much your presentation sort of predicted the next question I had at each turn. So every slide sort of answered. So I wanted to say how much I appreciated that. The one thing that wasn't addressed here that I have an open question about and would like to understand better is how undocumented students in SFUSD do or don't have access to dual enrollment, because I hear conflicting things from students and faculty at the college, and we want to make sure, of course, that we have a way to smooth that transition for as many of of the undocumented students as possible. Is there a, I don't know if you have something ready.
Yeah. No, we do have undocumented students participating in the program. The part that becomes tricky sometimes with the undocumented students is around getting their fees covered because they don't have the documentation, the appropriate documentation that City College requires for residency necessarily. So what we end up doing a lot of times is SFUSD will pay their fees, but they do have access.
They do have access, but there is some work we could do to manage that access so it's not an obstacle, it sounds like. So I would just raise that as another thing that we could be looking at here. Of course, we have a longstanding interest in helping undocumented students, and there's a lot that Free City doesn't or can't do unless it really focuses on undocumented students and what we can do to support them. So this might be an opportunity for us to think about that and sort of grow the equity of the program in terms of undocumented students. And I guess I also was really interested in the internship program because I felt like that's fantastic. And it feels like it matches what I was raising before about unmet need and sort of making room for students to be students rather than to be, working in the workforce in general. So my mind was kind of blown in thinking about it as internships and all of that. And it may be that that's a model we could think about for certain populations, even as they move beyond our, beyond SFUSD. If they're in Free City, could we be thinking about certain populations, maybe our foster youth or other ways to think about using Free City to sort of support the economic needs of students so that they can focus on school it's very exciting to me as a possibility. And then finally, I saw the note that that biotech and auto and some of the others, and that some of those things aren't moving forward. And I would just say, we experienced extreme layoffs and cuts. Our auto program is almost gone, and there have been impacts on biotech and other places. So this is a place where, the direction that the college seems to be going in terms of offerings and what our SFUSD students need sounds like they're in conflict, and that's upsetting. And I'm really sorry to hear that.
I was going to add a comment, Alyssa, if you don't mind, about the internship. One of the things that we did pre-pandemic was around our transitional age youth, which is exactly what you were saying, around getting, and we started it with educator and custodial, and they would take a course in the workforce with City College, and they had already graduated from us, but we would continue paying them to engage in that course, have a placement either at usually in SFUSD with custodial services or as an educator, but to help them get through. I would love to grow that. The problem that I've encountered with growing it in funding, a lot of the grants that I get are only for high school students. But I know that the grants that the CYF provides could possibly be for transitional age youth. But that meets to what you were saying about, like, after they leave us, how do we continue to help them move forward?
Member Brandt?
Thank you. I have the same concerns as Member Messer as you were discussing the areas, specifically in relation to automotive and biotech. And I was curious too if these slides will be shared outside of the meeting, if they can be emailed, because I think it is important that as a community college, we're looking at the community as a whole and the needs of the community, and factoring this into our decision making. It doesn't seem right that we're working against efforts and community need.
So the presentations, I think members should have them, but we can send them again separately because it is kind of in a massive packet. So we'll distill that for folks.
Thank you. Sorry, I may have missed it.
That would be great. And I have one quick question. First of all, I love this model and the lens of equity that it really brings of linking students to a dual enrollment class in tandem with a paid internship, and just the way that it can really illuminate a path forward for folks post high school graduation. So thank you for the presentation. I just wanted to clarify. So you mentioned it sounds like there's a great demand for this. And you mentioned that there is that you're capped out on purchasing classes. Remind me what the cost is associated with the purchase. I presume all of these students are San Francisco residents if they're going to SFUSD. So do you mind just reminding me what the cost is associated with the classes?
Yeah, it depends on the class. So it really depends on which one we're doing. So for example, if there's a class that's just basic class, no labs, it's approximately $10,000. If there's a class that has a lab included in it, then we're talking more around the $12,000 to $17,000. And then it also depends on how many students we have. And then also like the work experience class, that one is dependent on number of students participating as well.
And so that's because City College is creating a class for high school students. If a high school student goes to a class that already exists, is there a $10,000 fee for that?
No, there's not, but it's not as they're creating a class. So we're taking the exact same course. So let's say, I think this semester we're paying for Spanish or Chinese. I can't remember which one. But so we're taking the same course someone else would take, but because we went above our 3.0 allocation, we have to pay for any class above 3.0.
Thank you. Go for it, Member Messer.
And Joanna, is that those extra, is that for classes that are on the campus or right on the high school campuses that are limited to dual enrollment, or is that for City College classes?
The Spanish one, for example, is a City College course at the City College campus.
Huh. That's confusing to me. I'm learning and listening.
Yeah.
I'm surprised.
Once we purchase the class, then only SFUSD students can go into it. But we were trying to give our students the college experience. So we want it to be on campus.
Right.
But it sounds like I may not be explaining it well enough. Yeah.
My understanding is that if there is a class that City College offers that is limited to high school students, let's say it's on a high school campus, which sometimes it really makes sense to bring it to Balboa, let's say, and then that needs to be paid for from outside. But you're describing classes where dual enrollment students are coming and like sitting with my students in my English class, right, and are just members of the class. And you're saying that the program was having to buy into those classes as well.
So we don't need to pay for any course, even if it's on a school campus, high school campus, or City College campus. The limiting factor is the 3.0 allocation. So once we hit that, it doesn't matter if we're talking about a high school class on campus or at City College, we just have to pay for the class because we're going over our allotted FTE. So it doesn't really, is that making sense? Like it doesn't matter where the course is, it's a question of the allotment that we maxed out.
And how is that allotment set? Sorry.
That might be a question for Dr. Wilkins, but they give us our allocation.
Yeah, it's actually a question for our Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs about how the allotments are set. So I would be happy to try to get a detailed answer on that can be shared, or invite him to a future meeting if we want to continue this discussion and have it more informed by his presence, because I know there's some nuances to it that make it a little complicated.
I'd be curious about that.
And I was just gonna add that we're in constant conversations with City College about this, and we even met last week. We're meeting again next week, and I know that they're trying their best to fulfill the needs of SFUSD requests. So it's been a conversation for the last few years around the allotment.
Yeah, Rebecca Chavez, do you want to comment?
So just a point of clarification, because I think it's something that's very important, is contract ed. So contract ed is basically not open to all City College students. It's just for that contract. So, you know, I'm hearing a combination of the two going on, but they're very distinct. So I just wanted to clarify that.
It sounds like there will be continued discussions about ways that that can potentially be expanded if there's increased demand that can help some high school students take more classes and also help the college with enrollment. So it sounds like there's some potential for expansion and that you all already have in those conversations, which I appreciate. Any other comments from members? Great. And is there any public comment?
Astrid, are there any speakers in the queue?
There is no speakers in the queue.
Okay, seeing none, public comment is closed.
Madam
Before-
Chair, can I just ask a sort of a general question about the documents that we received? I think it will be brief, but I saw in here that there has been another Free City College annual report, and I was really involved in the first one. And I don't necessarily want to be involved in this one, but I just wondered what other who did this report and how was input included within it?
So Kelly, the person who presented the data, the annual data, that annual data was extracted from that report. So really the annual data was meant to be a high level overview of the annual report and included many of those recommendations. She worked really closely with our institutional research office to collect the updated data and information, but also looked at the technical and equity impact report that the RP group had done as well, just because, there's some alignment about thinking about how we could improve services and support to students. So I would say those are probably the major things that went into updating that particular report.
Okay, it surprised me that we had done this because when I was working on the last one, it took a really long time and we had lots of discussions and we're really involved with it. So this was something the college did, which is okay. Thank you. Thank you for that.
I think, Connie, just to kind of clarify that, I think in the first MOU, it was actually on the burden on creating the annual report was on the Oversight Committee. I think in the subsequent MOU, it didn't really say that. It just said that there's an annual report. I think it was up to the City College to complete it. So that's how this process went.
Okay, thank you. I didn't realize that distinction. Okay.
And before we move on to the next item, I just wanted another point of clarification. Maria had mentioned the $20 million in reserve that was from the Crow report. I just want folks to know that the controller's office and our fiscal team have been working with Crow on that number. So there may be some changes to it, but we'll definitely update the committee once they've kind of finalized that number.
Thanks, Jay. And that is a great segue into item 10, which is future agenda items and member comments. DCYF will coordinate to find a date for our next meeting. DCYF has also compiled the various action items that need to be heard. And if you have any future agenda items, they will incorporate that into their plan on how to bring all of these items to committee. So are there any items to be considered for a future agenda from any members? Member Brandt.
Thank you. I think I briefly mentioned this earlier, but some sort of exploration around how to support students with other barriers that they encounter, such as when a student needs to withdraw from courses due to extenuating circumstances past a deadline. I don't know. I think one of the things I suggested was an appeals process, but I realize that that's more of a Band-Aid and an interim solution. I don't know if that's the real ask or solution, but something along those lines.
Thank you. And before we go to Dr. Wilkins, I saw a comment in the chat from member Messer that we had many things come up in discussion today, and DCYF will grab those from the recording and has been taking notes.
Great.
So those are on the list already, but in case there's any others. Dr. Wilkins.
Yeah, just wanted to formalize putting the RP group discussion back on the agenda.
First. Great. And any public comment on this item?
Astrid, are there any speakers in the queue?
There's no speakers in the queue.
Great, seeing none, public comment is closed.
Great. With that brings us to our final item, which is adjournment. Thank you all so much for, member Messer, I saw your hand. Go for it, just in time.
So we made a big decision today in terms of the reserves and the fees, and I just wanted to sort of ask, I know that will go to Mayor Breed. I assume DCYF will have a conversation with her. Is there need for support for student testimonials? Is there anything we can do to help shepherd that unanimous vote? And especially so that we can hopefully get it done before registration starts. Sorry, that's.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, nothing right now. Member Sue and I will make sure to follow up on next steps. Member Brandt.
Yes, thank you. I just want to say that I was able to locate the slides. I didn't realize you all do things a little bit differently. And so I didn't realize that they're after the agenda if you keep scrolling. So I just wanted to let you know that I do have access. Thank you.
Member Villalobos.
Actually, my question was answered. I was going to offer support as well, but thank you.
So I just wanted to respond to both of those requests. I will work very diligently with the mayor's office to make sure that this request moves quickly through the process of City Hall. I definitely hear and also feel the sense of urgency to move these dollars fast, because we do want to make sure that students are aware that the fees are taken care of and that they should register and go to school. So I definitely understand and hear your sense of urgency on this. And if anything off happens, I will come back to this body and call you all individually for help. But I don't foresee that.
Good.
Thank you, though.
You can hear we're all available.
Clearly, especially you, Connie. Thank you. Thank you.
Great. All right, with that, it will bring us to our final item, which is adjournment. Thank you all so much. And can it be noted for the record that this meeting is adjourned at 11:54 a.m.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.